Since the Community Energy Transition Strategy was approved by City Council in 2015, the world's understanding of the impacts of climate change has increased, and the urgent need to act has become clear to the global community. In 2016, the International Paris Agreement, a pact to reduce emissions, entered into force. As of June 2019, 185 countries, including Canada, have ratified that agreement. In October of 2018, the IPCC Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius was released. It emphasized the importance of limiting warming by contrasting the expected impacts of a 1.5 versus a 2-degree temperature increase. The report states that allowing global temperatures to increase by 2 rather than 1.5 degrees globally will significantly strain the adaptive capacity of human and natural systems. Work done in support of Edmonton's climate adaptation strategy indicated that climate change is expected to cause, on average, a negative impact to Edmonton's GDP of $3.2 billion annually as early as 2040, and $8 billion in terms of social costs. For each degree of additional warming in Edmonton, social costs increase by $2 to $4 billion, and the GDP impact increases to $850 million to $2 billion, with the larger increases occurring at higher temperatures. Edmonton City Council has already recognized the importance of limiting the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius by supporting the Edmonton Declaration. To evaluate Edmonton's strategy in the context of a 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario, a local carbon budget needed to be produced. A carbon budget is the total amount of emissions permitted over a period of time to stay below a temperature threshold. The global carbon budget has been calculated by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to be 2.5 million megatons. Using an internationally accepted protocol, Edmonton's local carbon budget was calculated to be 155 megatons. In order for Edmonton to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target, the carbon budget threshold should not be exceeded. With this carbon budget in mind, the Community Energy Transition Strategy target was evaluated. The conclusion is that the current target of reducing emissions by 35% below 2005 levels does not align with the limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario. At the current rate of emissions, approximately 19 megatons annually, the city would exceed its carbon budget within 8 years. In other words, the 155 megatons is what we have in a carbon bank, and we are withdrawing 19 megatons per year. If the emissions reduction trajectory of the Community Energy Transition Strategy is achieved, it would take approximately 10.5 years to exceed the carbon budget.
I had a question about the 1 point. So this targets us to 1.5, so it targets us within, or creates the target of the 155 megatons. But even 1.5 is the global average. What's our aspiration here? Because I recall in our, when we passed our climate change adaptation policy, Ms. Tamaris, we had talked about even if we hold at 1.5 globally, that means a 3.5, 4 degree increase here. Is my memory correct?
That's correct. The climate records show that Edmonton's climate has already changed. We're one of the fastest warming regions in the world. And as early as the 2040s, the average temperature could be between 3.5 to 5 degrees warmer, depending on global emissions.
Although the scale and speed of change is challenging, the modeling and high-level economic projections suggest that the majority of the actions will result in financial savings to Edmontonians and contribute to building a diverse economy. The 23 most impactful actions were grouped together into 6 illustrative climate shifts. Even if all of the actions included in the climate shifts are fully implemented, carbon neutrality will not be achieved by 2050, and the carbon budget will still be exceeded. This stark reality has been acknowledged by leading climate action municipalities such as New York and Vancouver.
Well, I just want to follow up on a little bit, because one of the things that impressed me about the report was a recognition it's not do we do this or do we that it's about all of the above. That it may be a question of degrees about which one gets us. But I just wanted to explore that a little bit with you, because it worries me that we spend an awful lot of time debating what's the best thing to do, and as a result, we tend to take a long time to do anything. I'd be worried, and what I liked about what we were talking about here was a recognition we've got to do it all, maybe to different degrees. So I just want to do a double check that I read that correctly.
That is correct, Councillor Henderson. It's what we find in the existing transition strategy and moving forward. It is a full spectrum of activity that it'll take to get where we need to go.
So how we do some of these things, we need to spend some time still looking at. There may be different levers, but we probably need to do all of them. What degree they will get us benefit may vary a little bit from what we project right now. But ultimately, everything on this list in some way or another we have to be able to deal with, correct?
Correct.
And so it's really about the timing, the most effective tools. It's not about whether we do this or not, because I think that's one of the things we need to recognize. And that's part of so it's more the detail that you're going to bring back to us rather than the shopping list.
It's a fully comprehensive integrated plan.
You know, we are among a number of different networks, actually, of cities working nationally and internationally to grapple with this challenge. And so being in that space, I think, automatically exempts us, if we've accepted the scale of the challenge and our responsibility, from any scenario where we throw up our hands and say, let's do nothing. I think we're past that. At least I believe we are. I think this council's been pretty consistent in its leadership, and our public's been very consistent, as we've heard here today, in taking this issue very, very seriously. People of all ages from all walks of life here today, and I'm grateful to each of you for being a part of today's discussion and reminding us as decision makers of the degree of seriousness that you accord to this issue and the sense of urgency. And I hear two things. I hear fear, and I hear uncertainty, and I hear impatience. Well, that's three things, actually. But I hear two themes. I hear that theme, but I also hear incredible hope, desire to solve problems, to come together, to be creative, and to bring people together in doing so. And I'm inspired by that. I'm moved by that. This is one of the greatest, if not the largest, innovation challenge that our species has ever faced, and it's going to take everything we can throw at it and a bunch of things we haven't imagined yet. And you know, the role that all forms of energy will take. I think we're going to end up having a conversation about nuclear energy again. I think that's going to come back in all kinds of different forms. I think fusion research is still progressing really quickly, and so there may be some things that come along and solve some problems. Actually, we're going to need that. We're going to need some miracles along the way, I think. But smart people are out there trying to solve those problems, and you're some of them, and that's fantastic. But that doesn't absolve us. We can't wait for miracles to solve all of these issues. We've got to tackle every one of the things in that wedge graph in order to reduce demand and reduce waste where we can, where we have control over that or influence over that, and divert our sources of energy to sources that have fewer negative consequences. But I hear loud and clear, too, that there are consequences to all of the changes that we might make, consequences for people, and that's why just transition considerations and bringing people along so that you don't have an economic hangover or economic resistance, but economic opportunity and inclusion, I think, is a very important part of the conversation. This will draw from all of us our best thinking, and I encourage those of you who've been here today to look for opportunities to engage in the city on an ongoing basis through our public engagement, through our Energy Transition Advisory Committee, and of course you're welcome back here at each one of the touch points for this reporting as we develop the next stage of this work. And I suspect at Council next week we'll have a discussion about feasibly what we can do to accelerate this, because I think the underlying theme is urgency. Which is crystal clear to me, rest assured, and I think to all of us up here. So thank you again.